Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome again to Enjoy English School. I'm Bruce.
大家好，我是 Bernice.
Yesterday, we started to talk about a marvelous little plant called mint in our features section or category of the magazine. We feature something, that means we focus on something. And even though mint is really quite small, it can play a big and helpful role most of the time in people's lives. So we have a 2-day lesson on it. Today is the second day.
我们今天进入到第2天的课程，我们要讲的一样是这个神奇的小植物，就是薄荷。它还有一些更多的故事可以让你知道的。
Okay, that's a nice way to advertise our lesson for today. Let's take a short break before we look at the text.
Okay.
The Marvelous World of Mint. Mint has even made its way into various mythologies from around the world. Nobody has been more in love with mint than the ancient Greeks. In fact, they even have a goddess named after the herb, Minthe. Just like the plant that she was named after, Minthe liked to be around small bodies of water. Her territory was the river Cocytus, one of the many rivers that surround the kingdom of the underworld. Living a lonely life, Minthe fell for Hades, king of the underworld. As it turned out, the feeling was mutual, and they began an affair. The problem was that Hades was already married to Queen Persephone. Unsurprisingly, Persephone wasn't pleased to find her husband fooling around. Filled with anger, she cursed Minthe and turned her into a plant. Each time Persephone stepped on her, a minty smell rose into the air. Of course, mint is commonly found throughout Greece. This story is just one of the ways in which the ancient Greeks tried to explain their world. However, there is something quite magical about mint, even without all the mythology. It's a plant like no other, and one we would never want to be without.
So remember, today is day 2. Yesterday we talked about the plant itself, some of its advantages and disadvantages. Today we're going to talk more about how mint became popular and some stories about it from classic times, from thousands of years ago.
Oh.
Mint has even made its way into various mythologies from around the world. Mint is nothing new, is really what this is saying. And I mentioned thousands of years ago, especially, to my knowledge anyway, in Greek and Roman mythology, stories about the gods, stories about why the world is the way it is, and so on. These great stories, some of them featured mint.
好，所以我们今天呢要来讲 mint 有一些神话故事。好，本来我们讲的是它的优点啦，还有它的一些缺点要注意的地方。今天呢，我们进入到了 make its way into， 就是我们今天呢让 mint 前进到了一个很不一样的各式各样的一种神话里面。好，那这个神话呢，当然是全世界各地的各种神话，而且是好几千年以前的神话。
Not bad for a little leaf. Nobody has been more in love with mint than the ancient Greeks. Now, their culture goes back 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, and for some reason, their stories have caught people's attention. And first to the Romans, and then they spread it around the world. And their effect even on our modern day world, for example, the names of the planets, some of the days of the week, there's still Greek being used. We don't realize it's Greek because we've made English out of it, but the Greek culture had a great influence on world history. And this sentence really means that Greeks loved mint so much that they put it into their mythology, into their stories of creation and power and explanations of why the world is the way it is.
所以刚才老师讲了，即使呢这个希腊的神话故事已经好几千年前，可是呢，即使到了现代，大家还是对于这些神话的故事非常的着迷。所以呢，世界上已经没有人比这个怎么样呢？古希腊人来的更加的喜欢 in love with， 就是爱上它，怎么样的迷恋它？迷恋什么呢？就是我们今天要讲的 mint 薄荷。
In fact, actually, they, the Greeks, even have a goddess named after the herb, Minte.
Alright， 好，事实上呢，他们这些希腊人，这个 they 就是指希腊人，甚至呢有一个女神这个女神的名字呢 name after 就是以什么来作为命名，就是以刚才我们讲的这样的一个香草类来做命名。那么她的名字叫门塔。好，刚刚老师有讲，她是一个女神。
Okay, that's quite an introduction. Now let's take a short break and then we'll continue.
好的。
Okay, let's get going. Just like the plant that she was named after, Minte liked to be around small bodies of water. So the plant, of course, is mint, and this goddess, a female god, was named after the plant. And apparently, I didn't know this, but mint grows around water very easily, and maybe swamps, rivers, lakes, ponds, these kinds of bodies of water, probably not the ocean, because that's salt water.
Yeah.
And most plants, only special plants, seaweed, for example, can live in the sea. But on the land, we have a lot of water as well, and that's where you will find mint. And that's where the Greeks found their goddess, Minte.
好，所以他这边就讲了，这位女神呢，其实呢，她就像是她这个名字被这样子命名，因为她就是用这样子的一个herb 去做一个命名。所以呢，这个女神她最喜欢待的地方呢，就是在一些小水域的附近。那为什么是说水呢？因为刚才老师有说 mint 它主要就是生长在这一些所谓的潜水的这个地方，好，比如说像池塘里面啦，好，或者是一些其他的这些水区的地方，那基本上不会在 ocean 里面，因为可能里面的盐分太高了。
Okay. Her territory was the river Cocytus, one of the many rivers that surround the kingdom of the underworld. Her territory simply means the place she lived or the places she liked to visit had to do with water, especially around the river Cocytus. You won't find that on a map because it belongs in mythology, not in geography. And according to the Greeks, Cocytus and many other rivers formed around the underworld. And that would mean, for modern people, hell.
好，所以接下来就说了，这一个女神呢，她的领地呢是一条河，这条河的中文叫悲叹河，感觉好像蛮悲惨的感觉哈。他说这一条河呢，其实是其中有一条河呢，围绕着这个地底下的王国哈，是冥界王国的其中一条河。所以刚刚布鲁斯老师说，你不要把 map 打开，然后说，那个河在哪里？找不到，因为它不是真正的河，它在神话里面才有的。
Living a lonely life. Minte was a goddess. She didn't have a husband. Let's leave it at that.
Poor.
Oh, poor girl. Minte fell for Hades, king of the underworld. I guess the young gods didn't like hanging around bodies of water, but she did, and so did Hades. Hades was the king, or sometimes we say God. That's 小写的 G. God of the underworld. That's what modern people would call hell.
好，所以呢，刚才老师讲了 underworld， 另外一个字就是 hell， 就是地狱的意思哈。所以他就说了，因为他过着都是一个很 lonely 的生活，所以他才住在这条河这边嘛，他的生活里面非常的寂寞，因为他没有boyfriend， 也没有 husband， 都没有哈。那结果呢，他就到了这个在这个地下王国，在这个冥界王国里面呢，迷恋上了 OK。这边的 fell for 就是指他爱上了谁呢？冥界之王，就是黑帝斯。好，他就爱上了这位王。
As it turned out, so what happened? What's next in the story? The feeling was mutual. How nice for them. They could have long eye contact because they liked each other so much. If the feeling is mutual simply means the same. It doesn't have to be good. If two people don't like each other, the feeling is mutual, and they began an affair. So they started to hang out together and hang around each other, and they were seldom seen apart from each other.
好，所以他既然呢爱上了这位冥界之王 Hades， 好，这个黑帝斯先生，好，那怎么办呢？他们呢？这个结果就产生了一件什么事情呢？没想到他们两个的这个我爱你，你爱我，竟然是 mutual， 这互相的哦，就是他也爱他的意思。然后呢，他们两个就出现了这样的一个affairs。affairs 通常就是说你是一个 married person， 那你可能又跟别人那个爱上了别人，那这时候就是产生了婚外情。
Well, she just explained the last sentence, which tells us the problem was that a married person, Hades, is very strongly attracted to a young lady who is very strongly attracted to him. Now, his wife, Hades' wife, of course, was Queen Persephone. Now, he was king of the underworld. Sometimes we say the god of the underworld. When he marries, the woman becomes a queen, even if she's a goddess. She'll also be called a queen. Persephone is a very Greek name.
好，所以这个非常希腊的一个名字。那为什么说他们是一个 affair 呢？就是因为这一个冥界之王他已经是 married man， 他已经结婚了，所以这个问题呢，就是他已经跟这一个什么人 married to， 记得这一词用 to not with，OK， 不要用 with 这个字。他已经跟这个冥后呢普西芬妮已经结婚了，所以你怎么可以再去爱上另外一位女神呢？所以这个当然是 affair。
Okay, and we'll leave your imagination there and take a short break.
好的。
Okay, welcome back. Let's take a look now at paragraph 3. Unsurprisingly, not surprisingly, who would be surprised that Persephone wasn't pleased to find her husband fooling around? Now, fooling around, 非常口语的那个味道 for this, to have an affair. And of course, it would hurt her very much if she is faithful to him, she expects he will be faithful to her, but that didn't happen.
好啦，不出所料呢，他的太太呢发现了，我的老公竟然去搞一些外遇，对不对？我怎么有小三在外面呢？好，所以他非常的 not pleased to， 当然是觉得不高兴啦，对不对？好，就是发现她老公呢竟然去做这个 fool around， 就是老师刚才讲的，去跟人家瞎混、闲混、搞暧昧，有没有？好，所以呢，怎么可以发生这种事情？所以她觉得非常的不高兴。
Filled with anger, that means extremely angry, very, very angry. She, Persephone, Queen Persephone, cursed Minte. To curse someone, there are two meanings. If it's modern day people and we're not gods, if you curse someone, then you say very bad and hurtful things about them. But when we're talking about the gods and goddesses, it doesn't matter if they're Aztec or Indian or Chinese or Greek. They have great powers. Well, just as she said, Queen Persephone, she's queen of the underworld, queen of hell. She must have a lot of power. And so she has turned her husband's playmate into a plant. And by now you should be able to guess that that plant is going to be mint, because her name is Minte, for one thing.
Yeah.
But we have more information here. Each time Persephone stepped on her, wow, she's angry. She's changed her husband's girlfriend into a plant that can't move.
Yeah, right.
If you really step on something very hard, by the way, it's not here. The word is stomp. S-T-O-M-P. S-T-O-M-P. We think of stomp maybe a bull will stomp on a bullfighter, or a bear will stomp on a rabbit, or something like that. Anyway, a minty smell rose into the air because when you crush or stomp on mint, that's one of the interesting things about it. It releases this, for most people, a very pleasant smell. And maybe Queen Persephone didn't think that that was going to happen.
对，好，所以接着呢，这个冥界的王后呢，就把这个女神变成了植物之后呢，每一次她就在它上面踩。好，刚才老师说的，你可以用 stomp 这个字，就在上面用力的踩它。结果没想到踩下去，感觉好像我们想说把一个东西踩烂掉，好像它就是看起来丑丑的，有没有？可是它竟然散发出一种 minty smell，就是哇，闻起来还蛮清新的呢，有没有一种薄荷般的一种香味？就这样子的 rose， 它是 rise 这个字 into the air， 就在空气之中散发出这样子很清新的香味。
And while we're at it, rise, as she said, is the verb. Rose is a flower. Yes, it's also the same word for rise, 过去式.
Yes.
And the 过去分词 is risen. Rise, rose, risen, just for your information here. And that will take care of that paragraph. Let's take a short break before we finish.
好的。
Okay, let's finish up with our final paragraph. Of course, mint is commonly found throughout Greece. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the story about mint.
好的，所以他说，当然啦，这个薄荷其实在希腊是很常见的，就像我们刚才听完那个神话故事，就可以知道他们的女神都是 named after mint， 所以可见呢，他们是非常常见的。
This story, this myth, M-Y-T-H, this myth, is just one of the ways in which the ancient Greeks tried to explain their world. This is true of all mythologies, no matter the Indians in the Amazon and the Aztecs and the Japanese. Early cultures all had myths to try to explain how the world is the way it is.
没错，所以老师刚刚讲神话，其实它本身这个故事的目的就是在解释说，我们的以前的世界是个怎么样的世界。所以这个故事呢，也只不过是其中一个方式。在这样的方式里面呢，这一些所谓古希腊的人呢，试着要去解释他们的世界是什么样子。
However, there is something quite magical about mint, even without all the mythology. And it's probably because of that wonderful smell when you crush. You don't have to stomp on it. If you just pinch mint, it will release a smell that most people enjoy.
所以刚刚老师就讲了，你不用真的去踩它，你就稍微这样子捏它，它就会有产生这样的一个香味了。所以他这边就接下来就讲说呢，确实是这个样子，就是 Greeks 呢，他们用这个东西来解释他们的世界之外呢，可是其实有一些东西确实对于薄荷来说是蛮 magical， 就是蛮神奇的。就算是今天没有我们刚才讲的那个神话，它还是非常神奇的植物。
It's a plant. It, of course, is mint. Mint is a plant like no other. There's no other plant or vegetable similar to mint. And one, a plant, we would never want to be without. after you've tried mint or smelled it or tasted it, you'll remember it for a long time, and you might want to keep buying it in one form or another.
所以接下来他就说了，这个 mint 确实是一个这个植物呢 ，like no other， 就是表示它非常的 unique， 它是非常独一无二的，而且没有任何一种这个植物呢，或者是我们的这些人呢，不会想说，少了，希望永远都不要少了 mint， 可以加在我们的茶里面啦、食物里面，所以没有任何人希望可以少掉这个薄荷。
Okay, that completes our storytelling today about the myth of mint. We're going to take a short break and come back and review some important words.
好的。
Well, our first item is a phrase. It's not just a single vocabulary word. It is to make one's way into, or we can say find one's way into. It can simply mean to enter, but it also has the idea you're not just going into some place, you're going to influence it, or it's going to influence you.
所以这个动词片语的意思呢，就是表示前进到、进入到。那另外呢，它有一个衍生的含义，就是表示影响到了。
Number 2, name after means those are the words we use. Some fathers will name their son after themselves. So you have Bruce Sr., Bruce Jr.
OK， 以什么为命名？
Number 3, territory is simply an area.
它是一个名词，表示领土或领域。
Next word is surround, which means to encircle. Circle 前面加 en 变一个动词。
这个字当动词，环绕、围绕的意思。
Number 5, as it turns out, or in the past, as it turned out, what is the result, or what's the next part of your story?
这个片语呢，我们可以用它是加 s 的现在或者是过去式，表示结果是。
Number 6, to turn someone or something into someone else or something else. She turned, Queen Persephone turned the poor girl into a vegetable.
vegetable 好，所以呢，就是把什么东西变成什么东西。
Number 7, step on. Remember, if you step on something very hard, it's to stomp.
对，就是踩踏的意思。
And number 8, magical. It doesn't seem like it's from the real world.
形容词神奇的。
Okay, that's it for today's lesson. Hope you enjoyed having some magic with us and going back into the past for a beautiful myth story, at least as the Greeks would see it. Until the next time, bye-bye.